Taron Egerton's new film Tetris actually surprised me. Not only is it a really smart, funny, and cleverly directed film about the entrepreneurial challenges of bringing one of the most popular video games in history to players around the world, it's also a shockingly honest portrayal of the utter corruption and terrifying brutality of Soviet communism. And it's a case study in how easily the legal concept of intellectual property can be turned away from protecting creators and incentivizing innovation to something that does exactly the opposite. Hi, I'm Sean, I'm a filmmaker and producer, and you're watching Create and Destroy, my new review series where I quickly break down what's great and not so great about the movies and TV series you care about. Tetris follows the story of Henk Rogers, an Indonesian-Dutch video game designer who grew up in America and worked in Japan during the console and handheld gaming revolution. In 1988, Henk signs a deal with a company that claims to give him the publishing rights for an addictive new video game called Tetris. But when the licensing company turns out to be shady, he travels to Russia hoping to meet the game's designer and strike a deal for the rights to publish Tetris on all platforms all over the world. Problem is, communism. The USSR wasn't some altruistic utopia. It was a harsh, authoritarian hellhole. And even long after the death of Stalin, people were still starving and living in a state of terror. Like everything else in the Soviet Union, when Tetris was invented by Alexey Pajitnov in 1984, it became the property of the state. And at that time, the USSR was collapsing under the weight of its own cripplingly stupid ideology. That put the bureaucrats who were already in charge of various agencies and state-owned businesses in a position to convert their political power into cash, selling whatever they could to the highest bidder. This was extremely common at that time and continued under Glasnost as the communists lost control and the Soviet system dissolved. Corrupt government officials sold everything from weapons of mass destruction to computer programs and video games, all to enrich themselves while their society was collapsing around them. Contrary to what you might have heard, powerful members of the ruling elite amassing unearned wealth is inevitable under any form of socialist or communist government. In theory, communism is supposed to be a stateless, classless society where workers own the means of production. But what that has always meant in practical reality is that a centralized political authority seizes control over all the land, resources, and labor and restricts private citizens from owning and thus profiting from their own entrepreneurial efforts. In the case of Tetris, Alexey Pajitnov created a game that was played by millions of people in the USSR before it found its way to other parts of the world. It was so popular that the government actually tried to stop people from playing it because it was reducing their productivity at work. And yet, Pajitnov didn't own the intellectual property, the code for the game, and wasn't allowed to make money off of his creation. Instead, Tetris was owned and controlled by Elorg, a Soviet state-owned business that had a monopoly over the import and export of computer hardware and software. So when Henk Rogers came looking to sign a licensing agreement, he immediately found himself entangled in a power play between competing political and economic interests inside the Soviet government. What Tetris actually shows us is the overlooked reality of communism, an absurd social and economic system that has never once lived up to its adherents' insane promises. Rejecting individual private property rights does not unleash peace and prosperity the way communists have always claimed. Instead, the most corrupt and violent people concentrate power and capture benefits for themselves, while everyone else struggles and starves. Even people who create a lot of value for the state and for the rest of the world, like Alexey Pajitnov. Without the Soviet element, Tetris would be a film about a bunch of private businesses like Nintendo and Atari competing to offer giant piles of money to the game's designer. Sure, there's still some drama in that story, but the fact that Henk literally risks everything, his reputation, his business, and even his life, in order to make the deal that ultimately saves his company, improves his family's standard of living, and brings joy to millions of people, raises the stakes, and makes the whole film so much more than just an amusing tale about a beloved video game. With a riveting plot, clever direction, some awesome 8-bit graphics, and the kind of high-energy, charismatic performance I've come to expect from Taron Egerton, I'd highly recommend watching Tetris as soon as you can. It's an incredible story that could have done what most Hollywood films do, ignore the realities of communism. But it didn't. And it's a way better movie for it. Thanks for watching this episode of Create and Destroy. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and let me know what movies you'd like me to talk about in future episodes. We've got a lot of other cool stuff coming to the channel soon, including more shorts and some longer form video essays. So if you don't want to miss out, be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. I'll see you next time.